What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, today joined by my main man, Penn Live's Nick Fairbaugh, breaking down, 24 hours removed from George Pickens, and so much to dive into as more developments emerge in the last day or so. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And you can find all of my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. All of Nick's work at PennLive.com. Nick, it's a good one here in the Berg. It's been a hectic 24 hours for me, you, and everybody else that does our job. What was yesterday morning like for you? You were a guy, for those of you who don't follow Nick, okay, I'm a grandpa. I go to bed. It's well known within the Steelers community that I go to bed before the moon comes up most nights. Nick was there at 3:30 in the morning going, I'm hearing stuff and we're going to follow this. And by 7 o'clock, a full night's rest that he did not get, the news comes out. What was last night or 2 nights ago like for you, my friend?
Crazy. So I was out that night. I was out Mount Washington. I posted a photo, and everybody's like, "What's going on with these rumors? What's going on with these rumors?" I'm like, "Well, I haven't heard anything. Nobody texted me anything. Like, wow, keep an eye out for this." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll poke around, whatever." And then all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh yeah, there's something here. Like they're working on a trade for George Pickens." And I was like, "Okay." So I kept working it. People were working on this thing like into the morning, like 2:30, 3 o'clock. Like it was like Steelers remember the Steelers were working on this late into the night. And so I went to sleep, when I just stopped getting responses. So I slept for about, I think it may not have even been an hour. And I got woken up and it's just like, oh, there it is. Like it's officially traded. And it's officially happening. And so that's what happened. So I, stayed up. I wrote, I did all the things I could, analysis, the news, finding out compensation. I slept for 2 hours in the middle of the day and then woke up again, did more work. And then I went to bed early last night, trying to recoup that sleep. But yeah, man, what an absolutely bonkers day that was. It's up there with the Russell Wilson at midnight signing.
Oh, there was nothing worse than the Russell Wilson at midnight stupid little video, and all of a sudden you get 7 billion text messages and phone calls, and you're going, come on, bro. Like, we knew this was coming. We didn't need it to come today. Like, that didn't have to happen at midnight.
I remember, back then I was working at Steelers Now, and I remember texting Alan Saunders, and Alan was asleep. He was gone already. And I was like, dude, I texted him the next morning. I was like, buddy, you missed a very important night. Slept through it all.
Dude, that's hilarious. It's wild when those things happen. And to be able to talk to you about it is, because we do it all the time. Like, I don't think people get that. Like, when you get that 11 o'clock text message, especially like I'm married, dude. Like my wife's in bed and I have to go downstairs and be like, good night. I'll see you in the morning. I'll probably still be upstairs. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. That is a wild night. Let's talk about how it happened, what went down. That's the biggest question here. George Pickens, reports all over the place. You go back, we're talking like January, George is okay. The Steelers are thinking about trading George. And then it goes through and it's still very likely. I remember having conversations with you in Indianapolis about how it's still much more likely that George gets traded than it is that he stays in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. You go through the process. Even when Omar's talking, you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe, but probably not. He's still probably going to get traded. They don't draft a wide receiver, That's the first oh, okay. Didn't see that one coming. Jeremy Fowler comes out with the reports that George was thinking about a trade request, and then he wanted to stay, and things seem to be fine and dandy. The Dallas Cowboys and those conversations end, and then they heat it back up. Take us through. How did we get here? If George never requested a trade, if that never happened, how did the Steelers at 3 a.m. decide, yep, we're going to ship George to Dallas a week after the NFL draft?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Back when they traded for DK Metcalf, everyone had been talking about how it was to pair with George, right? Not to replace him. Well, fairly clearly, they made that trade to replace him. DK Metcalf is here with $33 million a year because of George Pickens.
Yeah.
Their lack of trust in him. I think that's the first part is they got the leverage they needed to start moving George Pickens. I think that was the big thing. I also think, the talks before the draft and during the draft were plentiful. The one thing I had heard, Noah, you and I sat next to each other on day 2 of the draft, and the thing I was
Yes.
completely hearing all that night was the Steelers are calling teams trying to get them to take George Pickens. I mean, they were
Yep.
trying to. No one was biting on this, including the Cowboys. The Cowboys didn't want to do this. The Cowboys working on other trades, and when those fell through, now this last week they finally caved in, gave the Steelers their day 2 pick. The Steelers wanted a day 2 pick for George Pickens, and I don't necessarily think they were going to trade him for anything less. If they had never gotten that offer, could they have tried and kind of worded this out with him and try and do that? Maybe, but I think it was pretty clear by the indications here. I think one, they wanted to move him, and Noah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't think he ever requested a trade, but it certainly didn't sound like he was super happy in Pittsburgh. And I don't think
No.
all of that was, because of the off the field stuff. I think a lot of it was just because look at the environment he was in, the quarterback situation, the lack of quarterback answers. I think there's a lot that kind of, George Pickens is pretty football smart. There's one thing I'm very certain about is he's a pretty smart football character in terms of what he can kind of decode on the field. He knows coverages. He knows what's going to work. And he could tell you right there, hey, listen, remember when he said nah at the Ravens game? I mean,
Yes.
said that. And so I don't think he loved being in Pittsburgh. And so this trade to me just felt like one that was a mutual parting of ways. And so the Steelers got what they were asking. They were trying to move him far before this. They got their replacement for him already. We'll see if they get another guy. I think that's going to be the big question. You would hope. But I think that's going to be the big question. But clearly this was in the works for a while.
It was. And the Steelers were very open to, the Steelers wanted to figure something out because I think they were well aware, everybody else was well aware that their best leverage was during the NFL draft. Somehow they got it after the NFL draft, which I think is very interesting. Yeah. But it was because I don't think either side anticipated things were going to go real smoothly this summer if George showed up and the answer was, okay, you're not going to get a deal. We've already paid DK. We have to pay TJ. We just don't have George Pickens' money right now. Or B, they started negotiating and lowballed him and said, hey, here's $22 million a year. And George is going, DK just got 30. He's been here for 15 minutes. The guy just showed up. I had a better season than him last year. Why is he getting all the money? Was there any chance that George was going to play this season on the last year of his deal? I know that that's what the reports are in Dallas. I don't really care what's happening in Dallas. In Pittsburgh, you just said both sides, kind of felt like it was a mutual thing. Was that because there was an understanding George wasn't going to play?
Well, I do think that he probably would have ended up just playing. I do. I don't think that was going to be a thing. I think maybe he would have, done some hold-in stuff and tried to kind of force it a little bit. But listen, I think George has very good representation. I think that's the really good thing. David Mulligetta is a very good agent. He gets what his guys need. He gives them great advice. He's not dumb. He talks with teams. Teams view George Pickens as a mercurial player that honestly cannot be trusted. Like that is why the Steelers only were able to get a third. I mean, for him as a talent, they should have been able to get more, but they only got a third because of that reputation. And so, if George wants to get a big contract next year, he's going to have to shed that reputation. He's going to need to show he can be trusted. Because here's what I'll say, Noah. The Steelers did everything this year to try and get him to lock in and say, we should give you 25 to 30 million a year. They did. They traded Deontay Johnson, who, remember when we were in the offseason, remember when people said, oh, Deontay was a bad influence on George. Maybe George comes out. That was a Steelers organization sentiment. That was a thing that they had. And so that's something that I think they did. They brought in Zach Azzani, who is a hard-nosed, accountability-laden guy. They moved George to the X receiver spot. They made him the dominant dog of the offense. On the field, I think you saw a really good player. But I also think back to the antics, not blocking for Jaylen Warren in 2023, pulling Jordan Lewis down by the face mask while wearing eye black that says always effing open. Basically boxing with Greg Newsome on a Hail Mary in the back of the end zone and taking yourself out of a play. Nearly fighting fans in the last regular season game of the year. The countless run-ins that he has just had on the field this year. It was just concerning. The 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties in Cincinnati that literally caused his head coach to say he had to grow up. Mike Tomlin literally went out on a limb every week for George. He said, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. He did all of this. And at some point, it just became too much. I think these accumulation of this broke the camel's back. And maybe George can change his reputation. But I think this maybe was the wake-up call George needed. The Steelers decided it could not happen in Pittsburgh any longer. Yeah. And maybe this is what can spurn George into kind of locking in and changing those habits. But it wasn't happening in Pittsburgh. In fact, honestly, it got worse.
It did. It did. And that's everybody still, I could picture Tomlin just clear as day right now, stuck on his words because Tim Benz asked about George showing up late to the Christmas game. And Tomlin go, I don't remember that. You do. You know, if a guy shows up late to a game on Christmas, any game at all, but let alone one against the Kansas City Chiefs that was in the midst of a losing streak where you needed George back on the field. I hear that. I hear that. The big question there, though, and I want to talk about Aaron. I want to talk about who's coming. Those are the big questions. But, I mean, this is interesting because you brought this up. Like, everybody will toss out but they've already done this with Chase Claypool, and they've already done this with AB, and George couldn't have been that bad. I mean, could he have? Or are the Steelers just my sentiment to everybody was the Steelers are looking to no longer deal with that stuff?
I think they are changing the way they're drafted. I think that's what we've seen. I think this is a thing they're going to change. I really do. You talk about, Pickens. I mean, listen, there was toxic locker room stuff with Claypool. The Johnson situation deteriorated to the point they felt like they had to trade him last year for essentially what was peanuts on the dollar. The same thing happened with
Dante
AB.
Johnson.
Right. I mean, it happened, man. And so this, to me, the Steelers are taking character a little bit more seriously. I really do believe that because I look at their last 2 drafts and I just think of experience-laden college football veteran-type players that were leaders, that were multi-year starters, that were captains. I mean, let's go through their 2024 class, all right? Derek Harmon, obviously, we have learned in a very short time, exceptional character, exceptional football character. Caleb Johnson was an uber-productive running back, but again, he was the heartblood of that offense, and he was a very high-character player. Jack Sawyer was literally the captain of the national champions. Okay, that one makes sense. Y.A. Black played 3 years at Iowa for significant downs, became a leader of the defensive line. Dante Kent, their 7th-round pick, was a captain. Carson Bruner, captain. Will Howard was the national championship quarterback, but was a captain at Kansas State. Even some of their UDFAs, Sebastian Castro, captain. J.J. Galbraith, captain. Aiden Williams, captain. All of these captains, this leadership part, bringing in Darius Slay, signing Robert Woods, bringing in these types of players that you look at and what they have done. It is a shift to me in the intangible qualities of what the Steelers have looked at. They're no longer taking leaps on guys that get flagged for character or things like that. It doesn't seem like that. They really kind of stayed away from that for a while. Now it feels like they're going back in and saying, listen, we are going to look at this and we're going to take captains, high football character players, because intangibles matter. And if the Steelers aren't the example of intangibles matter, you're wrong. They do matter. And so that's what the Steelers are really buying into here.
That's first off, had no idea that they just drafted and or added like 7 captains to their roster. I sit in the same side of that. That's what I was kind of preaching yesterday, trying to translate is the Steelers, they started I think they were spooked by AB. I think AB was the beginning of the, okay, we have to be less tolerable with this stuff. And I think everybody had a cross. Like Chase Claypool lasted 2 years because you knew from the jump that was going to be an issue. You weren't going to fix that one. It was just getting worse immediately. Juju lasted 5 because Juju was significantly less worse.
It's on TikTok. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. He was nothing compared to the rest of these guys. Deontay Johnson, I think, had his moments where it was like, okay, like altercation in the locker room, issues with trying on the field, all of these things emerge, but at least he's willing to go up in front of everybody and say, I'm sorry, I keep screwing up. So the Steelers looked at it and said, all right, eventually we got to get the first half off the team because it doesn't matter how many times he's going to go up there and apologize it doesn't make a difference. With George, it was just so consistent that it's okay. Look, this is it. We got rid of Najee, we got rid of Kenny Pickett. Now we got to get rid of George, and we have to get rid of anybody who is here that's going to be a distraction. I agree 100%. So what does it change moving forward? That's the biggest question here. Start with Aaron Rodgers. Impact Aaron Rodgers at all? I mean, everybody could say Aaron Rodgers has one choice. He doesn't. He has two. The second choice is to retire, but does George Pickens not being here? I mean, it is Calvin Austin, DK Metcalf season, which no matter how many times Russell Wilson compared Calvin Austin and Tyler Lockett together, they are not the same yet. So does it change anything for Aaron Rodgers? Is this less appealing for the Steelers?
I mean, it's obviously less appealing because they lose a very talented wide receiver, but I also think Rodgers probably had an idea this was coming. I can't imagine, when you're keeping that open, fluid conversation with him, you got to let him know about this stuff. I mean, listen, in the Pat McAfee interview, he did not mention George once. He mentioned DK, Muth, he even mentioned, I think, Calvin Austin in that, and didn't mention Pickens. I would imagine he probably had an inkling something was coming. So, I mean, that should be in his calculus already. But Rodgers, is an enigma, just like, in some ways Pickens, right? They're enigmas.
Yes.
And so Rodgers, I think his calculus is completely different.
Yeah.
And I don't really necessarily think this affects it that much. So if he wasn't coming earlier, this doesn't change that. If he was coming, I don't think that changes this either. I really think it's a completely separate conversation, to be quite honest with you. And so we'll see. The Steelers playing the hokey pokey a little bit here, half foot in, half foot out with all of these movements, but I don't think it changes much for Rodgers.
Dude, do you remember in your time thinking, because you were a fan before you were this, and even, before you were this, before you ended up in a locker room when you were like 15. And when before that, you were already working and covering the team. Do you remember a time where the Steelers were, this deep without like any, it's crazy to think that OTAs is in 2 weeks. And I heard Jerry Dulac on the Rich Eisen show the other day say, oh, there's still some time. There's in the NFL, the time's over. The time passed. Everybody's got their team. 31 other teams know who their quarterback's going to be, or at least some scenario that a quarterback is this or that. The Steelers are looking at it going, yep, we just got rid of our number 2 wide receiver that we have to replace, and we still don't have a quarterback. Do you remember a time like this at all?
I can't remember a time this uncertain.
Right?
It's really odd, isn't it? It really is. The whole Steelers' offseason has been odd. I wrote about this yesterday. They're like making moves for the future while trying to win now, like
Yes.
signing Darius Slay over this incredible crop of free agent corners this year. I like Slay, but he's 34. He's probably going to retire after next year. Rodgers, you're going after a 41-year-old quarterback to be your bridge quarterback instead of just maybe paying a few more bucks to keep Justin Fields. I mean, because you didn't want to give him a long-term assurance as a starter. It's been a little weird. They're like half in, half out. And that to me is kind of the theme of this offseason. It's kind of this middle grounding thing, but they've done this for a decade. I even remember back when, the Killer Bees were around. They refused to go aggressively really pursue defensive players. When it was clear that Artie Burns and Sean Davis and those guys weren't working out, they never made a big trade until 2019 when Ben blew his elbow out to go get Minka.
Yes.
It was weird. So they've done this before where they haven't fully gone in. So, they have a plan, but here's the thing, man. They're probably going to pick like 17th next year, going to have to trade up 12 spots, give up their 27 first to go get the quarterback. And so you lose a premium asset for 27. So it loses. There's just a lot of weird process this year in the quarterback situations, really highlighting that. If you're here right now without George Pickens, you trade George Pickens. So your team's undoubtedly worse talent-wise. You do what you did this offseason. It's just an odd mix of win now, future. It doesn't make sense. But either way, I can't remember a time like this. The Steelers, honestly, right now feel a little directionless heading into this year.
Yes.
It feels like they're just like, man, just get us to 26. Just get us to 26 this year. Somehow we're going to get through it. But all eyes are on the draft in 26.
That's so wild to me. Where are you putting this? Like, where are you putting the directionless? Because is it Tomlin? Is it Khan? Is it Rooney? Like, is it a mix of everybody?
It'll probably be a mix of everybody, right? I mean, listen, I think Mike T and Rooney want to win. I think there's no
Yeah,
doubt about it. Mike T wants to
obviously.
win. Mike T looks at Cam Hayward and literally cannot stomach to himself to tell him that they are not seriously going to win this year.
Yeah.
Because I know the respect that Mike has for Cam. And Cam has 2 years left, probably. Maybe 3 if he really wants to push it, but he has 2 years left on his contract. And so Mike feels this obligation to guys like Minka, to guys like Cam, to guys like TJ to put together a roster that can try and contend. But the Steelers know, like, I think Mike knows deep down in his heart of hearts.
Yeah.
This isn't changing until they get a quarterback. Like, they need a quarterback. And this year, obviously, the quarterback class was bad. So
Yes,
they didn't take one. And so I think that's the significant thing about this all. And so they're doing this weird dance. I think it's a little bit of everybody. I think Mike feels like he has an obligation to guys like Cam and TJ that have just invested so much into this franchise and, are kind of the cornerstones of this. And I think, the Steelers are kind of trying to do this win now while rebuilding thing. Haven't seen a lot of teams do this before. We'll see if it works for them. It's a very fine needle to thread for the Steelers. So they bet. Well, I'll say this has put an immense amount of pressure on that quarterback pick. They need to get it right. Not only do they need to get it right, they need to surround that quarterback with the perfect environment to foster his growth. They cannot afford another miss like they did when they took Kenny Pickett. Because I'll be real with you, Noah, if they miss on that quarterback, that actually might be the end of the Mike Tomlin era. Legitimate.
I can't give you all the ingredients to the hot dog. You might not like it.
I guess I laid it out there for you guys, but that's the long-term view of this if it doesn't work out. That probably
I agree. Look, I said the same exact thing. And that's, to be honest, like I think Tomlin is well aware of that he can't. I think that's why they didn't draft Shedeur, is because they understood Mike Tomlin wanted Shedeur Sanders. That was pretty well known. Mike was a big Shedeur guy. The Steelers as a whole weren't that big of a Shedeur guy. And the sentiment was like, Mike, dude, 3 strikes, you're out. Like, that's where we're at here. You've whiffed twice now. You can't whiff a third time. The pressure, the noise from the fan base is getting too loud to sit here and just ignore that everybody wants you gone and nobody thinks you're a competent head coach anymore. And he is. Like, that's the thing, is Mike Tomlin is still a great head coach, but at some point you got to draw a line. You have to draw a line. I agree with you. I think I think that's why they didn't draft Shedeur, and I next year's quarterback, they can't, which makes me so nervous, but we'll dive into names later.
It's not even a need anymore, man. It's a must now.
It's a must. With that said, George Pickens, official from the Pittsburgh Steelers, headed to the Dallas Cowboys. So let's talk about how he gets replaced here in Pittsburgh. What are the names for you? Everybody's tossed out if you walked into the same restaurant, if you've lived in the same state, if you and a close friend's cousin exchanged words with Rodgers' close friend's cousin's dog, there's a connection there. Everybody said, well, that's a Steeler. That's a guy that the Steelers can go target after the George Pickens trade. Who, if you look at it, who's your cream of the crop here? Who is your crop for the Steelers to go after to replace George?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I'm pretty out.
Way to start that.
I'm pretty out on Allen Lazard. I don't love that, trading just a pick, essentially, to give a guy with Aaron Rodgers' connections. I don't understand that. I mean, the Packers are probably the most interesting of the trade scenarios to me. And I know people talk about Dubs, and I like Romeo Dubs, but the guy I'd go after is Dontavian Wicks. That's who I would go after. And I think he might be more expendable just because Golden feels like that X route runner type. So maybe you can go out and get Dontavian Wicks. Now, I don't know how much that would cost. And do you really want to give up a draft pick? I think that's also a consideration. But Wicks is a young player, so you could theoretically actually make him part of your future. So I could understand that trade. Same with Dubs. They're both young enough to where even though their rookie contracts are nearing their end, you can extend them and then kind of have them be a part of the future there. So I understand that. I mean, listen, the free agency crop's not great, guys. I mean, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. I mean, we're talking about 2 very talented players, but obviously coming off the worst seasons of their career. Maybe you feel like Cooper or Allen can find that second wind, but I mean, a lot of questions with that. I mean, you could go out and maybe look at somebody like a DJ Chark, but again, I mean that doesn't really move the needle for me. There's just not a lot of great options.
No.
I mean,
what about Gabe Davis? Just released yesterday from Jacksonville. I mean, 2 years ago, this was a dude people were saying the Steelers should sign. They didn't, or a year ago. 200 yards is not great, though.
I mean, I thought that was always very fool's gold. Now, he's a tough player, and he's a great blocker. But, I mean, he can win down the field, so I understand some of the things. But I feel like they have Gabe Davis at $2 million in some respects. I mean, he's not the same player, but Robert Woods does a lot of the same things. Doesn't play his downfield as consistently. But if you just want a guy that makes tough catches over the middle of the field, is a veteran presence, and blocks, I mean, just pay him $2 million to be Van Jefferson. Like, that's exactly what the Steelers are doing. I mean,
brutal.
Listen, Robert Woods is going to be a better player than Van Jefferson was just because he blocks better. But, I mean, it's not inconceivable to me that the Steelers go into the season and just rock what they got.
Yikes.
And I don't think that's crazy. I think that they'll look – I would look at the Green Bay room. That's, to me, the cream of the crop here. I think Dobbs – or Wicks, and it depends on the cost of that. You know, if they want a 4th round pick, adios amigos. I'm not doing that. If you can get one of those guys for a 5th or a 6th, I mean, I think about it just because again they're young and you can kind of mesh them in. But I'm out on guys like Lazard. I don't really, I don't see the reason to sign Cooper. Or I mean, again, signing Cooper and Rodgers. I mean, let's say they sign Cooper and Rodgers. What an odd fit of an offseason it is with planning for the future.
Yes.
So I don't know, man. It's very odd to me. But the cream of the crop to me is the Green Bay receivers. That's what.
So does that mean that the Roman Wilson talk is real? That they're really good, dude? But like, what happened? Okay, so I mean, from your perspective, what happened with Roman last year? Because that's a massive question. Yeah. What happened? This dude was hurt, but like, was he hurt? I don't know. And I mean, it like. I don't know. If a year ago Roman was the guy that should have stepped in and played a role, can you look at it the same this year? Is that what is that plan worth it?
Look at how much Roman practiced last year. So I did the math last week, and Roman practiced 13 days in the spring/summer, the OTAs period there. He practiced the first 3 days of camp, high ankle sprain, missed the rest of training camp and the entire preseason, was limited for 3 to 4 straight weeks. Yep. He basically had less than 20 full practices before the hamstring injury. So he plays 5 snaps against the Raiders, hurts his hamstring, re-aggravates it again in practice the day after, goes on IR. He's on IR, has 2 weeks of full practices, but that's only 3 practices. This guy basically had 25 practices.
That's crazy.
You want to see why he didn't play. Folks, that's why. You can't be a rookie receiver with 25 practices. If he had suffered a hamstring injury after going through training camp in the preseason, I think it would have been far likelier and far easier to say, all right, Roman, we've seen you run the playbook. We've seen you in practice. The Steelers basically have barely seen this dude even on the practice field. Like,
You're not wrong.
I don't think it's much different than anything there. There's the big conspiracy. You didn't pick up the playbook. Maybe he didn't. I don't know that for sure. But I'll tell you what, this guy didn't have time to show he even knew the playbook because he barely had any practice time in camp in the preseason. And then even into the season, they were in full mode to game plan. This guy was running scout team. He wasn't running with the freaking 1s and the 2s. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the fact of the matter is he didn't play because he was hurt all year. So he's a complete unknown to me. He's a complete wild card. We'll see. And this thing that sucks is, I mean, right before he had that high ankle injury, I mean, he suffered that literally on the first play of padded practice in the 7-shot drill. Right before he had that, he had some really good practices in training camp. He had a rough spring, right? It was kind of like, oh, the rookie's trying to find his way. And then Roman Wilson kind of came out in training camp and you said, okay, there it is. He locked in and you're starting to see the speed. You're seeing the hands. You're seeing the toughness. He's physical. He's explosive. He's fast. So there's a lot of things to buy into. And he's got exceptional – we talk about football character.
Yes.
Roman Wilson has exceptional football character. He's tough. He's a type of guy that can be a leader, I think. And so this is a type of guy you love. He's coachable. And so let's see what he can be. But the reason Roman Wilson didn't play last year is because he never got on the practice field. That is why he never played. There was no confidence in him to do anything because he didn't get to show it. That's why.
I agree. I think you got a lot of fans right now fired. I think there's some people in this chat right now who are ready to run through a brick wall for Roman Wilson after that explanation there. Okay, so I won't hold you up much longer. I got one question left for you. George Pickens was traded yesterday, which I think, people saw coming, but I think tried to ignore at the same time. Like that was the whole offseason was, they're going to trade George, but like they're going to replace him. Right? That's what it was. Is every year, a couple years ago, it was the Steelers offense, Steelers team looks pretty good. If you just don't look at Trey Turner and Kendrick Green playing offensive line, they're pretty all right. They're good, and we just tried to ignore it, and then it just can't show up, and you're like, wow. That's the worst offensive line of all time. And there are always those pieces. Miles Jack and Michael Walker, they're not going to ruin the season for the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky is going to be better than No, we always try to ignore something. I think that's what people tried to ignore this time is like you tried to talk yourself into if they're going to trade George, they're going to replace George. That's what's going to happen. They haven't yet. No. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I want your prediction. Week 1 of the 2025 regular season, who is the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback, and who's he throwing the football to?
Well, I do think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I think eventually he signs.
I think some people are happy, some people are not so happy about that.
Yeah, we'll see about that one. I expect mostly negative reactions, actually, when that happens.
Yes.
As for who he's throwing the ball to, I mean, listen, man. My prediction right now is they probably end up signing somebody. I think they will. I don't think it's going to be someone earth-shattering. I'll say they trade for Dontavian Wicks. That's going to be mine. And I say that there's no source on that, guys. I don't.
Every aggregator out there, please go and clip this right now. Actually, Nick Fairbaugh predicts Travius Wicks is headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I say Dontavian Wicks just because I'm looking logically at the receiver room they have, the roles they have. And he's just such an up and down player, but he's a different skill set the Steelers don't have. He's an outside route runner. He's very different from DK. I think that's a really good value skill set to have. And he's a young player still. I think he's just 25. So that's a type of player you can really invest in. Wicks is 23. So, we're talking a really young player who's going to head into the third year of his rookie deal. So, this potentially could be a really interesting player. You got him under contract 2 years, so it also bridges the gap next year to where it doesn't feel like wide receivers as urgent of a need. So that I think really actually makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. So I'm going to say Wicks. We'll see. They could, Dobbs could be the guy that they end up trading. I think someone's going to be out of there in that room, whether that is now or closer to the start of the season on the waiver wire. But I'm just going to say Dontavian Wicks right now, and that's by logic. Just kind of speaking.
Aaron Rodgers, Wicks, DK Metcalf. Those are, look at outside of Wicks, those are a lot of guys that didn't win a lot of games last year, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, they didn't win a lot of games at the end of the season. All right, my friend. I appreciate you. That's all I got for you today. Before I let you go, and I'll start diving into everybody's questions here afterwards, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at FairBallFB. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Nick Fairball. Make sure to read the stuff over at PennLive.com, guys. And if you want to hear more stuff on the YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz on Penn Live. So we got a podcast over there, too, if you want to listen to it.
I appreciate you as always. We will be at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex tomorrow, so I will see you there bright and early. With that, my friend, thank you, and enjoy the evening. For everybody else, I will be right back on the other side of this break. I'm going to dive into all your questions, so make sure you're tossing them in the chat. Nick, one more time, thank you. And guys, we'll be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes black and gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Shout out our boy, Nick Fairby. Everybody, go make sure to check out his work at penlive.com. Now it's time to dive into all your questions. We're going to finish the show the same way we do every day, so toss them in the chat. I'll get to as many of them as I possibly can. Shout out to all our super chatters. Shout out to all of our members. Can't thank you guys enough. And with that said, we're going to start with Artisanal Bully Kenny Kendall. Excuse me. My mouth is, I'm out here tripping today. What's your accurate Yinzer spelling for Will Howard? Howard or hard? Chat, what do you Yins think? That would be awesome. I think it's I want to say it's the second one, but that's a pretty spot on description of what we're working with here. Good old Will Howard. That's a great one, to be honest with you. What a way to start this live chat here as we close this one out. That's Will Howard. That's fantastic. Fantastic. I can't wait to tell him that tomorrow, to be honest with you. Mac Mars, 7th round pick for Christian Watson. I don't think that you're getting a 7th round for Christian Watson. I think you're going to have to go 5th, maybe a 6th. His injury history helps you, but you also have to take on the injury history that comes with a Christian Watson. And because of that, I don't know if he's going to be, I don't know if Christian Watson is a guy that you strap yourself to and say, that's the solve, that's the solution to our wide receiver issue if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that there's a part of you that is a little worried that you're giving up a 6th or a 5th round pick. I don't think you're going to get a 7th. I think, realistically, it's a 5th. Hopefully it's a 6th because he's still young. I mean, he works, and if he's healthy, he's better than Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson and the guys that you have on staff already. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you also have to be thinking, I want a little bit more than that. I want to do something a little bit bigger than that one. And again, Christian Watson's great. I don't think he's the top 2 guys that I expect them to trade for in Green Bay alone, just because injury history on top of younger options, I think fit better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stephen Cornfield, who's available that's equal to George, no downgrades. I don't think anybody. That's the hardest part of this situation is you gave up a guy that if you remove, if football was a video game, he is a dude who is a top 12 wide receiver in the NFL, maybe. And you're looking at going 24 years old. Of course, I'm going to take him. That's a guy that's a stud. You're not going to get anybody that's equal to George Pickens. I don't think that the Steelers could find anyone equal to George Pickens. I think they're in trouble in that avenue. They have to find somebody somewhere, obviously, but I do not think that George Pickens and replacing George Pickens is going to just be like this smooth thing. I don't think that you're going to get the same talent level. You're going to just hope that you get somebody reliable. That's where the Steelers are, is they need DK Metcalf and then somebody who's reliable behind him. That's going to be the only way that they could replace George at this point in the offseason, especially after the NFL draft. Bully Kennel, one more time. Show me Lazar for a 5th. If you're giving up Christian Watson for a 7th, Alan Lazard for a 5th, I think you got to swap them. I'd go Alan Lazard for a 6th, maybe a 7th. And I think you could get him for that. I think that's actually realistic, is to go with Alan Lazard out of New York, a guy who doesn't really have a role there right now, who never really got his footing down in New York with the Jets. You could probably go out and get him for a 6th round pick, maybe a 7th round pick. And he's not the worst. I'm not high on him. I'm not high on any of these guys. Alan Lazard's 29 years old. He's coming off of a 500-yard season. I think that's what it is. 6 touchdowns in 12 games for the New York Jets. Not the greatest situation to go out there and have so much confidence that this dude's going to come in here and be a wide receiver too. But I think you could, again, get him for a 6th round pick, 7th round pick, and take a shot on a guy showing up who's probably better than Robert Woods in some areas and is insurance if Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin don't work out. That's how I view Lazard in that case. Trap and Lito, have you have to believe this is a build for the future move. 12 draft picks says so. I say trade Minka and TJ as well. I don't think the Steelers in a million years would trade TJ Watt. I've never, every time that I get a phone call or I have a conversation or I check in on the TJ situation, it's always followed by, ended with, sometimes started with, TJ's not going anywhere. He's never going anywhere. The Steelers are never going to trade TJ Watt. Minka Fitzpatrick is a name that might make some sense at this point, that you could argue the Steelers should consider moving on from, and they may or may not. I mean, look, at the Steelers, chances are never going to move on from Minka. Next year would be the move to move on from Minka, to say you have one more year on your deal. It's that time where you're looking for a contract extension. Let's send you somewhere else and get some pretty decent draft return, because you could probably get a second or a third round pick from Minka Fitzpatrick. Not the worst plan for the Steelers, as long as Deshaun Elliott's still around and you could figure out somebody to replace Minka. I think that one works. TJ, they would never, ever. Now, they traded George too, but they would never trade TJ. I'm very convinced of that one. James, am I the only one that thinks YA's name should be Yins Black? Yins Black. That's hilarious. I should actually let him know that. I mean, if we're going Will Hard and Yins, I mean, I think that's hilarious. And he's super. That was the best part of the draft, of day 3 of the draft, was asking him or someone asking him on the press call afterwards, hey, how do you pronounce your name? And does everybody call you like Yaya and all this stuff? And he just went on the list of crazy things that people have called him. Yins might be up there. It definitely might be up there. Egyptian Roughneck, a member for 3 months. Can't thank you enough, my friend. I know many don't have faith in Mason, but last year with the Titans, Mason was 91.6% completion when the pocket collapsed. Trust Mason. We got this. I will say that if, there's a lot of talk right now about where the Steelers go. Quarterback, and Peter Schraber just said that Kirk Cousins is still a name, and so on and so forth. And look, it's Mason Rudolph. If the Steelers do not get Aaron Rodgers, it will be Mason Rudolph. It will remain Mason Rudolph. That's been the plan the whole time. They're going to bring somebody else in to compete with Mason Rudolph, but it will be Mason Rudolph, and it should be Mason Rudolph. Like at that point, there's no point in going crazy and saying, okay, we've protected ourselves for the future with Rodgers. We let Justin walk because we're protecting ourselves for the future. We let Russ walk because we're protecting ourselves for the future. But we'll just go trade for Kirk Cousins and take on a massive contract for the future. That doesn't make sense. It would be Mason. Stephen Cornfield, how bad do they get hurt if they win the bowl? I'm guessing this is in reference to TJ and Cam and Minka and everybody else in that situation. And if I'm wrong, toss it in the chat as a normal chat and I'll catch it here. But they don't. And, that's what the Steelers are looking for. The Steelers are in this weird gap, like Nick kept saying, is that you're looking at this going, the Steelers have pieces to win a Super Bowl right now, but they're preparing to win a Super Bowl in 2 years. And that doesn't make any sense. Like, why? How did that become the thing? Where did the Steelers go and turn where it's okay to be very old, be preparing for next year, but in such key areas say, yeah, 2025 might be our year. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, it's what they're doing. They would never tank. They, Noah, meant for the draft next year. Sorry, how bad? Do they get hurt if they win the bowl? If they win the Super Bowl and then in the NFL draft? I mean, bad, but you've already done what you needed to do. The Steelers don't care about a franchise quarterback and trading into the top 5. They'll take a Super Bowl every single time. That's just how it'll work. And look at that. That's, again, if they pull it off, fantastic. You've done it all. Screw those picks. Screw that franchise quarterback. Screw everything else. If the Steelers win a Super Bowl, the clock resets. You're fine. You could go another 2-3 years, 5 years without winning a Super Bowl. You've already won one. you've already done this. You're building a franchise. And to be honest with you, I think if the Steelers prove they're a Super Bowl team this year, Rodgers is coming back next year, and you're going to get a quarterback you're going to go trade for a first-round quarterback and try to set it up so you continue to win it. I think that's a great spot to be in. I do. Terry Jones, what do you think about DJ Moore from Chicago? I think he's too expensive. That's my thoughts on DJ Moore. Is he's already signed the $125 million deal, and he's getting paid a lot of money. And I'm not a DJ Moore guy for the Steelers. I haven't been throughout this whole process, is because you're going to give up a 4th round pick for DJ Moore, at least minimum. And you're going to take on a pretty massive contract. And I think the Steelers are looking to figure that out, and they'd be open to that. But I think they're looking to go young. And I think young would be a somewhat of a stopgap wide receiver. I don't think DJ Moore is a stopgap wide receiver for the Steelers. And because of that, phenomenal player, better than Wicks, Dobbs, Lazard, Gabe Davis, anybody else that you're going to toss out there. But I do not think that he is a name the Steelers would consider right now. Thomas Noah, I am lost for words with the George Pickens trade. I get that they would have only gotten a 3rd round pick anyway, but they should have let us see DK and GP. It would have been nice. It would have been exactly what the Steelers wanted to happen, but they knew couldn't happen. It was a match made in heaven that had to die. That's what it was. It's a tough situation for the Steelers. I think the Clash Bros would have been awesome. The Steelers walking out DK and George Pickens with Aaron Rodgers would have led to one phenomenal offense. But I truly think that they are looking at it going, we need a culture change. Things are bad right now. Distractions are crazy. We're a dramatic football team. We don't want to be a dramatic football team. How do we change that? I think that's how you change it. John Burnett, can I get a shout out to my girlfriend Taylor for her birthday? She's going to her first game this year, probably against the Purple Pigeons, aka the Ravens. Shout out to Taylor. Happy birthday. Hope you enjoy it. Hoping if you're in the Berg, I hope it's a beautiful one. It looks like a beautiful one as I look out my office window. It looks like a good day here in the city of Pittsburgh. I hope it's good if you're here or anywhere else. Happy birthday to you, Taylor, and go Steelers, because, man, dude, nothing. I'll say this. My first game for the Steelers was as a fan of the Steelers. I was a kid. I was probably 11, 10 years old or something like that. It was the Jacksonville Jaguars playoff game. They lost. I think it was David Garrard who just lit them up. They just couldn't stop them. And then at the end of the game, a Jaguars fan spilled beer on me, and my cousin who was with me lost her mind and almost fought this dude. And looking back, that was a Jaguars game, playoff game, but that was a Jaguars game. David Garrard was playing quarterback. Shouldn't have been that hostile. I can only imagine what Ravens games are like as a fan. I've never gotten to attend one. I've always been in the box for them. You don't get the, I'm talking at M&T Bank Stadium, the press box is at the fan level. So there are people who could turn around and talk to you. And I won't lie to you guys. I talk smack the whole time. I have DMs to prove it, because people find me and after the game, and they'll DM me and they'll be like, yo, dude, that was fun. And I'm like, it was. We had a good time. But I will talk smack the whole time to these fans. So shout out, Taylor. Happy birthday. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get a win. Thomas, send 2027 first and second round picks for Jetta. Oh, yeah. And then what do you do a quarterback? Where are you doing a quarterback after the 2025 season? Look, that'd be fantastic. Steelers would never. The Vikings would never. Would be a great dream to live, to be honest. I'd have a blast with that one, but no, I don't think it could happen. I think you don't got a quarterback after that. That's a tough pill to swallow for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maddie, at this point, I would rather give Will Howard a shot and let these rookie wide receivers prove themselves. Do you think that's a plan that could work out if done correctly? Which wide receiver would you want to see try? A rookie next year, if that's the thought there, I don't disagree with, or I disagree with. If you're letting Will Howard be the guy and you're avoiding a quarterback next season, tough spot. When it comes to trading and saying Will Howard's the guy, this year because Aaron Rodgers didn't show up or whatever, and you're saying Rock Taylor or, second, third year guys, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, I like that. I'm all about that. I think that if you want to give them a shot at OTAs, that's why I don't think it's happening soon, because I look at it right now and say the Steelers have to go into OTAs and see if Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin are great or if they stink. And if they're great, awesome. If they stink, well, the Steelers are in trouble, and you got to give them some opportunity to prove that before you go and make a trade. Justin Gordon and Khan and Tomlin's offseason moves so far make the win now idea seem like a joke. Do these moves plus another 9 and 8 first round exit get them out of here? No chance, Justin. No chance. I will say that until a new quarterback, new young first round draft pick quarterback comes to Pittsburgh and fails, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a spot where they are not going to get rid of anybody. And to be honest with you, it's a very confusing offseason, but it's a very confusing offseason because they should just stop trying to win now. That's what they should do. They should just look at it and say, let Mason cook and see what happens. Let Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson develop. Let Pat Freiermuth develop. Let Mason McCormick and all these guys develop. And then a year from now, screw it. Go get your guy. But this year, it would be great to finish with a top 12 pick in the draft if you're the Steelers. If that's what they're looking at, that's what they should be doing. Tank. That's what they should do. It's crazy to say they would never in a million years, but this whole trying to win now and trying to win later at the same time thing just looks weird and leaves you directionless. And I just don't think they should be doing that. There's no part of me that thinks that the Steelers are in a place that they'll win a Super Bowl in 2025. And because of that, why are you signing Darius Slay and going to get Aaron Rodgers when you could just see what you got now with these guys and these pieces for the future? I think that makes more sense. Hollywood 931. Noah, please during camp. Do camp updates on Rock Taylor, UDFA. I definitely will. I'll be there tomorrow morning. And then Saturday for rookie mini camp. Super excited for it. Up plenty. I will be honest with you guys. Rookie mini camp is the most boring of the mini camps of all of them. They don't actually they barely scrimmage. If they do at all, it's a lot of individual drills with no helmets or anything on. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. You meet a lot of these guys, but it's more so who looks physically crazy. Who's that guy that you're just oh yeah, you knew Jaylen Warren during rookie minicamp. You're looking at Jaylen Warren, go, that dude's a stud. Jonathan Taylor last year, you're going, that dude's a stud. He turned out to be a stud, but you looked at him then and be like, that dude's got it. He should be on a roster. Jaylen Warren should have been on a roster. And I think that's, where you're at right now. That's a place are at this point in the offseason. I think that's exciting enough to kind of get us through. So I will have updates for sure on Rock Taylor. I will make sure to keep all of you guys posted. Nate Moore, what does Calvin Austin have to do this season to earn himself another contract and remain the only prospect from the 2022 draft class on the roster? He's got to prove that he's a wide receiver 3 and he's worthy of being a wide receiver 3 and maintaining that role on the roster long term. He's got to prove that he's a guy that you want to build with. It's hard to say stats, but I look at Calvin Austin and just think tangible evidence that this dude can be here long-term, should be here long-term. He's got to put that on the field. I don't think he's gotten an opportunity to do so yet. I'm excited to kind of see if he does this year, to be very honest with you. Also, favorite sandwich meat is some capicola, a little, salami, some pepperoni. I'm an Italian sub guy. At all times, I'm an Italian sub guy. Wes, is it time to try again to make a trade for Brandon Ayuk? I bet we could get him for a third rounder, or we could use Cordarrelle Patterson. Cordarrelle Patterson is the biggest mystery on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I don't know why he's still on the roster. I don't think anybody knows why he's still on the roster. He is still on the roster, though, in case you forgot about him. I don't know how that makes sense, but he is. When it comes to Brandon Ayuk, I don't think the Steelers would give up anything more than a fifth for Brandon Ayuk coming off an ACL injury. They weren't willing to give up anything. They were willing to give up a second last year. This year, I would guess it's a fourth or a fifth for Brandon Ayuk. And that's how I think that's why I draw the line on it, because I just don't think that the 49ers are going to be willing to do that. I don't think the Steelers are looking for somebody with an injury. It's a spot where if there's no ACL tear and the 49ers just stink and their Super Bowl window's closed, yeah, it's open for the Steelers. But the fact that the ACL tear happened, I think the Steelers are looking at it going, we already paid our guy. That's too big of a question mark for us right now to take a shot on that one. Justin Gordon, Mason is not better than Wilson, and a 41-year-old AR isn't either. I hate they let him walk. We look crazy right now. The reason they let Russell Wilson walk, and I will admit that Russell Wilson's better than Mason Rudolph. I don't know if he's better than Aaron Rodgers, but I do think that it's, there's an argument to be made, obviously. I think the reason they let him walk is because they truly didn't think that he gave them he didn't do enough to give the developmental pieces a shot. It was throw it up to GP, throw it up to GP, throw it up to GP. They want Pat Freiermuth involved. They want Calvin Austin involved. They want Roman Wilson involved. That on top of the Arthur Smith stuff, like they just, they weren't looking for it. They thought it was noise that they didn't need. And I'll be honest, I think Russ was never like the plan this offseason, but I think he would have had a better shot of being the plan after Justin Fields failed, because if he and his team didn't send out all of the Arthur Smith causing issues reports and send all that all over the place, because that's what happened is, Russ's team leaked all this information and started these headlines, and the Steelers looked at it and said, all right, dude, we don't want you around anymore, but I think he would have been the backup plan outside of Justin if he never did that and the Steelers missed on Justin before any of this Aaron Rodgers stuff ever happened. That's how I have looked at it at Russell Wilson. Again, I don't know if things change, but I would imagine that if you go back to January, that's how that would have looked. That's how that would have looked. Almost All-Star, is there a wide receiver announcement coming? It is hard to believe they traded GP without having something ready to announce. How could they put themselves in this position again? I look at it and say, when it comes to an announcement, no, nothing's changing, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a place right now where they don't know what they're doing. They're kind of, again, directionless is the word to use. They're directionless at this point. I don't know. I think the Steelers are trapped between, we need to still try to win a Super Bowl, and obviously our quarterback's coming next year, so shouldn't everything else come next year? And that's a weird place to be. It's a really, really weird place to be. But no, they don't have a replacement plan. I don't think they're gonna until at least after OTAs and minicamp. Would the Steelers be a destination for any free agent wide receivers that are looking for a more established offense? I don't know how established the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is, but yeah, the Steelers are obviously going to be, at this point in the offseason, you're not negotiating with guys. You're just calling them, like, hey, we got a job for you. You want to come out here? That would be great. That's how the Steelers, like, right now, that's how they're operating, is whoever they call, they're going to get. So it's about calling the right person. People are just looking for jobs at this point in the offseason. Pittsburgh Hornets, do you think the wide receiver 2 search will be any better than the Brandon Ayuk saga? I got a phone call during the Brandon Ayuk saga last year in the middle of training camp. I answered it on the sidelines. I actually spoke the whole conversation on the sidelines. I bet a group of fans actually heard me. And on the phone call is somebody saying, look, we're not going after Brandon Ayuk anymore. We can't be doing this. And I was like, I don't think that's like accurate. Like, you guys are definitely going after Brandon Ayuk. And he's like, well, we're still talking, but like the drama is just ridiculous. The headlines are annoying. We're getting tired of it. And it like just went on this rant. And I was just like, wow, this is This is crazy. Like, this guy's really messing with people's heads. That's what Brandon Ayuk's doing. I don't think this is going to be that crazy. But, man, the Brandon Ayuk saga was awesome last year. It got so tiresome, but it was so awesome last year. Blessed Light grabbing a membership today. Thank you guys so much. Cannot thank you enough, to be honest with you. Blessed Light and everybody else, make sure you're calling into the call-in show on Wednesday. I mean, it's always a good time, and I appreciate you guys always. All right. Looking for a couple more as we close this out. I think Amari Cooper would be a great Steeler. Yeah. I mean, I do too. I don't think Amari Cooper is a bad wide receiver. I just don't know like how much it's every position. It's at what point do you risk the development of Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin when you don't have a Super Bowl plan to go after, a younger or an older wide receiver? Like, at what point does that happen? I think Amari Cooper might walk that line. He might walk that line. Shout out to Marlon Lewis, man. I can't wait to show Nick that comment for sure. All right, looking for one more to close this one out. And we'll close with this one. This is a good one from Marlon Lewis here. Do we think the Steelers could feel comfortable with this wide receiver room just because DK is a pro and doesn't bring as many issues? The answer to that is yes. I think the Steelers are looking to all of this, for all of this, at all of this, and saying, we just need calmness. We need to be able to regroup and center ourselves in a better direction. And this is how we're going to go about this. So yeah, I do think the Steelers are in an okay spot with the guys that they have mentally. On the field production, I don't think you are, but I don't think they're super worried about that right now. I think they're trying to figure that one out. They still don't have a real game plan, as crazy as that sounds. And I mean, where we sit here today, I don't know if they're going to get one, but I think they're comfortable with no noise and going from there. All right. And this is the real one we're ending with. Russell, Turner or Schneider's iced tea? I'm an Arizona guy. Could I be really honest with you guys? I'm an Arizona guy. I didn't grow up in Pittsburgh, so Turner's tea was not a thing. Schneider's tea was around, obviously good, but Turner's tea is good too. I'm a big Turner's chocolate milk guy. As crazy as that sounds, like the tiny jugs of the chocolate milk, fantastic. I'll eat there. I'm a wild dude. I'm 29 years old, and I think I'd have a 6-pack, and life would be so much better if once every 3 months I didn't sit down and eat an entire box of cookies for dinner, like with a half gallon of chocolate milk. Like, that's my dinner. Turner's rocks there. I'm an Arizona guy, though. I'd walk down the street, 215 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. I'd walk down the street to the corner mart every single day. I'd spend that 99 cents. Sometimes I'd have 96, and the guy just tell me, "You're good, pal. You'll be here tomorrow." And I would be. And I drink that Arizona every day. So I'm an Arizona guy. Turner's, Snyder's. I think I'd go Turner's, but I'm an Arizona guy. All right, guys. With that said, I'm heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. For those of you who will be on tomorrow, I've got an announcement to make, and I'm very excited for it. So make sure to tune in. For everybody who's here in the Berg, enjoy it. It's a beautiful one. We'll be back tomorrow, or I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.